What's up? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Divide podcast. You guys have probably only heard me once on the audio episode, but you haven't saw me. So now you see me. I am Carter. I am the producer for the Divide podcast, and we're kind of in a different area. And we got a new person with us. John and Cam are actually in Charlotte, and then I'm actually in Indianapolis. So it's kind of like a divide with the group. But we're rolling today. Today we got ZAYE. ZAYE's one of my friends, and we do ministry together, and we're just gonna pick each other's brain and kind of just see how it rolls, you know?
Yeah.
Got my sparkling lemonade and ZAYE, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
A little bit about me, like what?
Like what you do, what's your vibe,
Okay.
how you got into ministry.
Okay, that's tea. Hey guys, my name is ZAYE. I'm a ministry master's student. So this is my last year. I'll be graduating in like 2 months. And my undergrad's in communications. So I don't know how I got into ministry. Like my senior year of college, I was like, okay, God, I don't know what to do with my life. And then ministry just happened to keep coming up and keep coming up. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll pursue this thing full throttle and see how it goes. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years, pursuing ministry in education and occupation.
Fire.
And I've been working with students, 7th and 8th graders. So it's been super fun.
Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so fun fact, I actually just graduated high school, so it's kind of insane. But my question for you is like, what's like the most common, I guess, theme you see kind of spiritual wise or problems with like kids, like especially like middle schoolers. So whether that's, I don't know, depression or like just constant spiritual battles or just things they go through, what is that kind of like? Or like, what are those constants?
There's literally so many. And I feel like it's not even just middle schoolers. I feel like a lot of the things that they struggle with, like I struggle with, like high school kids struggle with. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media. Like there's so much deception on what's real. Like nobody knows what's real life anymore. So it's like that in itself causes like depression and anxiety, because it's like you're chasing this false reality that's not even real life. So like always trying to meet that standard and be the best and be like the top notch when the top notch is really not even a thing. So like that's really real. And you know what the root of that is?
What?
A lack of biblical literacy. Because it's like,
okay,
the real truth is in the Bible, but because we don't read our Bibles or know like exactly what it says, we're chasing this like false reality of what real life is.
So you're saying the reason why people chase like highlight reels on social media and kind of like the I guess the eye of being the perfect person is because they haven't been rooted in their word necessarily.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Because
that's real.
This is actually so tea, because even like at church and stuff, and I don't know, I'm just gonna speak specifically for children's church because I don't want to attack nobody big church. I don't know what y'all got going on at y'all big churches. But like children's church, for example, like when we talk about people like David, we just talk about how he slayed Goliath. Like we talk about the highs.
Yeah.
Like we don't talk about how he slept with Bathsheba. Like, you know, like, but it's like, then again, how do you teach that to a kid?
Yeah.
But it's like when that's what your mind is like wired to believe, that that's what you have to be. Or you just talk about Jesus all the time and Jesus in his perfection. But we don't talk about like how Jesus is like that holy standard and like he expects us. And that's the reason why he had to be holy, is because he knew that we weren't going to be perfect like him.
And he lived it too.
Yes.
He lived the temptations. He lived everything just like us. That's insane. That's true.
Yeah.
I think, I do think it's hard, especially in kids ministry too, is it's hard to teach that. I mean, like you said, they're not gonna be able to grasp it. And so, but also how can you kind of like integrate that in to kind of get kids to understand that? I don't know.
That's so tea. Because like this is so good for my life. Because I'm literally thinking about if I want to work with kids. Like I literally just applied to be a teacher last night. No lie. So it's like I feel like there is like a reality of kids make mistakes. Okay, like that is a thing. So it's understanding that like when you make a mistake, what do? You repent to God first. Like say you're a kid, you're 5, right?
Yeah.
And you hit your brother. Okay, you're not supposed to do that. You need to say sorry, obviously, to your brother, but you need to repent to God, because like ultimately any sin that you commit is unto God anyway. Like even David, like he was like, okay, yeah, I slept with Bathsheba, but yeah, I killed her husband. Okay, but God, I hurt your feelings. Like that's really the overarching theme here. So it's like understanding that but then also this is such a tension to be managed, because it's like you do want to teach holiness. Like there is a standard of holiness that we do want to strive for. So I don't exactly know, but there is a tension to be managed of like teaching kids what to do when you do wrong, but then also try to do right.
Yeah, I feel like that also comes with like doing it in the household too.
Yeah,
like it has to be coming from modeling from your parents. You know what I'm saying? No, but it's true. It comes from like you can't expect your parents. I mean, the mom and dad can't expect all their kids to learn and also act out what they're being taught at church. It's not going to happen, because that's only a one-day thing. And so if it's not constantly being modeled, I think that's a struggle even here at a church in a suburb too. I feel like when you're in a suburb compared to kind of in the rough or kind of just in struggle, you're comfortable, so you don't have to worry about anything. You have nothing else to rely on. So people struggle to rely on God, right? And so that's why you see worship is different, or the acts of service is different from a suburb church compared to a church that's maybe in struggle, or the congregations in struggle, because they're actually relying on God and believing that He's going to work a miracle in their life, compared to people that are in comfort and they don't care. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, like my parents obviously have modeled what it's like to be Christ followers, right? But I think one lack was just a expression of worship, and also like that comes with like my dad coming to Christ later, and then like me actually seeing my mom be kind of that role model, I guess, later in life, right? I didn't really see it as a kid. I think it's just because I wasn't looking at it, or I didn't really care, you know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, I think that's huge for the household and for kids to see their parents constantly being like you said, when they steal or do something to their brother, not only should they repent, but that repenting needs to be taught by their parents, because their parents are modeling it, right? With each other. Good. So then the kid, you know what I'm saying? That's good. And so, I don't know, parenting's it's a lot.
It is a lot. That's why I'm glad I don't have kids right now. That's like that, and it's, I don't know, that's a thing. And this is so good, because this has been a thought that I've been like pondering on and processing weekly. What do you think about like the construct of youth ministry as a whole? Let me break it down. Youth ministry is obviously like not in the Bible, like clearly, but it's like, once we get to, I think kids is fine, because like kids can be disruptive in church, and then they also like, they need to understand some type of theology of who Christ is. Okay, that's fine. But then like once we get to like middle school, high school age, this is my tension, because it's like, once they get out of high school and go to college, it sometimes is a struggle for them to make their faith their own, because it's like they've been given a baby version, or it's hard for them to integrate into like their church community, like as the intergenerational church, you know, like in pouring and growing, and like older people pouring into younger people. Like there's natural mentorships that are birthed, but it's like sometimes because students are like in their own world, it's like sometimes they don't get that. But then you see like fruit. It is real. But then you see like good fruit of them being like amongst each other. So I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So, I think, like my thoughts on it too. I think when you look back in the Bible, like I've been reading in Peter this past kind of week, right? And so it was also just talking about like leaders in the
Mhm.
church and like all that. But going back to it, I was also listening to a podcast too. This guy, he runs a church out of his house in Hawaii. His name's Alex. And so he was talking about how his kids used to be separated from him, and then he'd only see them for maybe a certain amount of time during the day, and then he would come back during like at the middle of the day, and they'd be separated from them because they'd record the podcast. But since they weren't together as a whole in church, they were separated, and so that missed time of being in family and learning as a family. So his thing about it now is he allows anybody, there's no kids ministry at his church. Everybody comes to church at one time. If a baby's crying, deal with it. Is it going to be annoying? Yes, but church is supposed to be a family thing, right? Not supposed to be separated, right? And so, like you said, and you do see it a lot too with kids coming from youth ministry to big ministry. Some of them leave. The other thing is some kids only come to youth ministry, but they don't go to main church. They kind of just split it because their family's not doing it, right? But then you got the other thing of like the kids who are only who are the only Christians in their family, and then what does that look like? But I mean, it's hard, but I think it's also good for kids to not only be rooted in their youth ministry, but also making their faith as their own, but also going to main church as well. So then you're not getting a child, like a watered down, not really a watered down version of it, but it's also good to kind of get a broader perspective of what the Bible actually is, especially if your church is exegetical. It's great because lots of the time in youth ministry, it's only going to be favored to what you're kind of going through, whether that's depression, social media, that type of stuff. Now you're looking at what it's going to be like as an adult, you know what I'm saying, as a 13-year-old or as a 14-year-old. So I think church is a family thing. And so I think for me and my future family is I want my family to go to church as one, right? I'll bring my baby into church. I don't care, because it's a family thing, right? And so then that sets my kids up for whenever they want to go do church with their family. They're like, church has been a family thing for me, and so it's now going to be a thing from our family.
Generational.
So
that's so
I think,
key.
I think that's the thing, but. I don't know. It's a broad kind of spectrum. Yeah. Church and family and all of that, youth ministry.
That's so good. And I feel like every time I think about these thoughts, it just really goes back to James when he was like, some of you are really not called to be teachers. Yeah. Like being a teacher is really like hard work, not only on earth, but also like in heaven, you will be judged harshly because it's like, this is really the job of the teacher or the shepherd to like cultivate those things. Yeah. You know, like it's their job to be like, okay, hey, you're a youth, but are you at Maine? Like, hey, have you ever thought about like serving at Maine? Like, you know, like pushing their students in that direction. That's key.
Yeah. I think, it's always having constant leaders. Yeah. And whether you're 40 years old, whether you're fresh out of high school, but you're rooted in your word and you're following after Christ and you're mentoring these kids. Like kids do need a push. Yeah. They also need a push to serve. They need a push to not only just attend, but go out and be the church. Yeah. I feel like you see a lot of struggle with that too. Just in ministry in general, people in the congregation, it's hard for, like you see a lot of people at a big church or even a small church as well, ask how many people go serve. Ask how many people go, you know what I'm saying?
Little numbers.
Yeah. Little numbers. Yeah. Maybe you have a congregation of 50 people. Why are only 10 people serving? Yeah. It should be the whole church.
Literally.
It should be the whole church.
If that, probably 5.
5.
Yeah, no, for real.
Yeah. But but that's another thing is those are the people who are living for Christ, but also rooted in their word. Yeah. That's just the main. It's the main thing.
Because you know, like when you serve, it's unto the Lord. Like, and it's like Jesus literally said when he came, like, I came to be a servant. Like,
Yeah.
don't serve me, I'm here to serve you. Like, that's literally like my whole purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we're being Christians, which is baby Christs, that means we should be following him in all his ways, especially that. Like, that was like one of his main points of stake claim. Like, I am a servant. So we should then be like, yeah, even more so.
So what do you think about priorities for especially kids, right? Kids are in sports. Like we were talking about this last week with me and my friend. We were talking about priorities, and kids, they have priorities all the time, and they put their sports over church or those type of things. And so our kind of conclusion of that conversation is, yes, you can have, like, you don't have to go to church to, like, you can go to sports and then not go to church. That could be fine, as long as you're in your word outside of church.
Right.
But if you're not, I think that's where it gets into a kind of a doozy.
It's a big doozy, because it's like, also it depends on how your church is set up also, because like if like your discipleship method, because you can just come to main service, but if you're not like being discipled in any way, like a small group or whatever that looks like, it's like, what are we really doing here anyway? It's like you're just getting like, it becomes routine and mundane at that point, like, and there's no like real roots. So like, how does that look to, like, I don't know. I think okay, this is my brain. Okay, I think that when we're really walking in the ways of Christ daily, then it's like Sunday is just when we're able to gather with other believers to do it together and like be inspired by other believers. Like, oh my gosh, this is what God did for you this week. Oh my gosh, let's get edified from the pulpit from like this person who has been soaking this whole week in this one word to, encourage us as we do this thing together. Like, and you get fellowship. But then like throughout the week, you're still in your word. Like, you have a personal relationship with God. So I don't know. And it's hard with kids because that also has to fall like from an authority figure of some sort. Like preferably the parents, but also, again, like what if they're the only Christian in their family and stuff like that. So like, I don't know, like that's when leaders would be important and mentors and stuff like that. Like, it's so hard for kids because they literally can't do it alone. Like, adults can't do it alone, but especially kids, like they can't even drive. Like, what are they supposed to do? Like,
that's real.
If their parents like, no, you're going to basketball because I pay for basketball, like they have to go. So it's like, I don't know. That's really hard, and that's just something that I probably need to pray for my students more and not get as frustrated. Because like that frustrates me, because like I know in my heart how I feel about God, but like, I don't know, that's good for my brain to like really like take a step back, because it's a big world. Like, it's even their worlds are bigger than just
what's in it. It's real. That's real.
That is tea.
I guess kind of wrapping up, what has two things. I got two questions. So here's my first one. What has God been teaching you in this season, right? But what can you tell somebody, what can you give advice to somebody that's going through the same season as you, right? What advice can you give someone what is advice to give someone that is going through the same season as you, walking through it? What is your advice for them while you're going through that season?
Okay, I guess first I have to clarify the season that I'm in.
Go ahead.
Even from my own brain. I'm deeply in a season of transition. And also simultaneously in a season of like surrendering. It very much looks like Abraham. Like, so much. So much looks like Abraham. Because it's like, okay, Abraham, come follow me. Leave everything that you know. Where am I going? Oh, I'm going to show you. Like, don't worry, just follow me. So it's like, that's like the transition part, because it's like, I feel so strongly in my heart that God is calling me to follow him to a place, but I have no idea where I'm going. Like, literally, I was just talking to my mom earlier, like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I have no idea what I want to do. I applied to 2 jobs in the past 2 months, and I literally need to figure something out in 2 months. So it's like, I don't know, but it's like I'm so trusting in God, and like I really have to limit who I talk to about this type of stuff, because some people will be like, no, you're like literally insane, like let's go. But I feel like sometimes that fast-paced mindset can really like stop us from experiencing the presence of God. Like there's so much patience and long suffering and endurance that you really get to grow through in these types of seasons. So that's one thing. And then also surrendering what I thought things were going to be. And sometimes even surrendering like promises that God has given to me. Like something about the story of Abraham that's so profound to me is that literally Abraham's had so much faith. And like I know we call him the father of faith, but like when you really like unpack and comb through, like that is such deep faith, because it's like, I want you, this is God, Abraham, I want you to sacrifice your son that I promised that you would have. This is your only son, okay, first of all. The only son that you said, that I told you were going to have, and that I told you was going to birth many nations. But this is the only one that you got, and now I want you to kill him. He didn't even question it. He's like, okay, God, whatever you say. And I read some commentaries the other day, and they were saying that Abraham probably thought that God could raise Isaac from the dead, or thought that he could give him another kid. But it's like, in the word, he never even went back and forth with God. You know, like we see people like Moses, which I've been Moses before too. Like no tea on Moses, that's my guy. But it's like we see how he's going back and forth with God. Like, God, no, I can't. Please send somebody else. But Abraham's just like, okay, like, and that's his kid. Like, bro, like I know he was sad. Like he couldn't even tell his wife that he was about to go kill their kid. Like it's like there's so much. Then I think about Isaac, like, bro, you was literally knife up. Like, how do you look at your dad after that? Like, bro, you was about to kill me. Like, there's just so many layers to that story. And it's like, I watched His Only Son though by Angel Studios, and I feel like that was so tea how they portrayed like Isaac, because in that movie they portrayed Isaac as having so much trust in his father. Like, as he was literally on this table about to get sliced up, he's like, okay, if your God told you to do this, I trust you as my father. And then like after the ram was provided, like they just had such a like loving moment. And I just thought that was so cool, because I always wondered, what did Isaac think? And of course, like we don't know if that's what he thought or not, but I just feel like that's such a good perspective. And it shows like how he trusted his father and how I trust my father. Like God is telling me to kill some stuff that I thought he told me that I could have. And maybe he did, but it's like, okay, but do you trust me? Like, do you trust God more than the promise that he gave you? Like, are you seeking God only for his promises or for his provision? And his provision is his character. So it's like, if he's really Jehovah Jireh, your provider, you should be willing to sacrifice anything. So that's what I've been learning. That's what I've been experiencing.
Come on.
That's what I've been holding fast to, like God in his character. Like I'm learning so much personally and like through life, who he really is. Like you'll never know him as Jehovah Rapha if you never had to be healed. You'll never know him as these gods if you've never needed him in that season. And to see that he's the same one every single time is so tea.
I mean, shoot, that even ties back almost to what we started with too, right? You won't know who this God is, right? Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi. You won't know them if you haven't been through it, right?
Exactly.
And those people have been through it, so they know, right? So that's why their worship is stronger. That's why their relationships are stronger. That's why they serve harder. And so, no, that's good.
That's good.
Clock that.
Clock it.
Clock it. All right, y'all. Let us know if you want to see a part 2. I know it's a short episode, but let's see if you want to see a part 2, and we'll run it back.
We will run it back.
Run it back. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Have a great week, and we'll see y'all. Peace out.
Bye.